my office that there should be payment only through PLA and not through Stellar. We also understand that this is a cycle, it doesn't make a difference. You pay in March or you pay in April, ultimately it's a cycle. So no such message is gone. Yes, no such message, and in fact, it will be better for me. Why should I increase my target for next year? So I am saying this in front of the chairman that no such message is gone, and if you would like to convey to any other association, please do that.
No such message has gone from Delhi also.
And coming on, yes.
Yeah, another point which he mentioned was, gave the example of Kingfisher. I think most of us know that is not the best example to give. We should compare comparables, and Kingfisher is not the best standard to compare with. They had their own economic practices, whatever practices, I think let's not go to that. Just a small remark in your response. And the third thing, Chairman, of course, your speech started with the words that it's being seen as a hostile and a lukewarm budget. I think the essential point has been missed. The positive side of the budget has been missed by many, including the press, the industry. There is hell of a lot of positivity in this budget. As the chairman said, the service tax law, for the first time it's been codified in a very proper and comprehensive manner. It runs into almost 100 pages, which is on the website. If the trade would care to go through it, or we could hold seminars on it to explain what this law is about. I think it's a great achievement in this budget, which has just not been.
We'll be talking about the positives also, but we thought that we start with negative.
Yeah, since you started the negative, I should start with the positives.
So, on to Mr. Munjal, please go ahead.
Yeah, as far as the auto industry specifically is concerned, I think it's already been mentioned that the domestic industry has been encouraged by, the cycle industry has been encouraged. The auto industry, the duty rates have gone up across the board. Again, the macroeconomic picture has been given by the chairman, so I don't think I need to add.
You are very right. Definitely, we do have some positives also, like the duty on import duty on the cycle imports that has been hiked substantially, and ultimately it's a big boost for the local industry. This has been a long pending demand that are low, cheap inputs coming from China. I mean, that is literally putting a big question mark on the local industry. Talking again on coming back to the automobile sector, Mr. Munjal, how would these developments actually affect the auto component industry here?
You asked for exports. Perfect. The criteria is if we are more competitive than the other countries, then it helps. And our competitor China is keeping their foreign exchange artificially low. And we were helped when the rupee devaluated to 54 rupees to a dollar. So that is one situation. The other situation is how is the economic situation in the countries of import, where we have to export. It's going on well in Latin America, in Africa, but Europe, it has its own higher capacity. Although there it is expensive to produce. So sometimes when the economy is not good there, they like to import from places where it is economical. In the budget, I would not be able to relate at the moment because there have been some clauses like training and all those things. If we get better trained people, our quality will improve. So those many aspects are there. But tax structure I have not analyzed, and there have been slight increases. They don't make things more economical here. The foreign exchange rate has done its work. Thank you.
I think automobile sector has been one of the very strong pillars for Punjab economy, and unfortunately Punjab could never attract a big company of a larger magnitude like Tata's or Volkswagen. Reasons are well known because the real estate here is so skyrocketing, and I always fail to understand that what is the reason for this high real estate price in Punjab, Because when we talk to industry, industry is always claiming that profitability margins are declining, and when we talk to a farmer, agriculture is also not happy. So unlike other states in India, Punjab's real estate prices has always been one of the highest across country. And for that, I mean, Punjab is definitely paying a price. But because when Tata's, they were in talks with Punjab government, and the same way when Volkswagen was in talks with Punjab government, these companies, they actually wanted a very large chunk of land. And as they go by their policy that they want to have accumulate large land banks across the country, and Punjab can't afford to pay such a fertile, rich land. So that is one of the detriment, I believe.
We met the delegation which came to Punjab for looking for a site for Tata Nano. We had some people from our LMA and industry, we got together. There, one question was, what is the quality of power? We could not answer that because talking of quality means voltage and current, to what extent, 420 volts, to what it goes on to 380 or 385. That's their machine won't work. We did not tell them that power is not available, we are talking of quality. And they wanted 1,000 acres. It is not available anywhere. The price was not the consideration at that time. The next day they had a meeting with the government, and in the evening I met some of the people, and they said that we have offered them, maybe they will spend more on land, but we have in total offered them a package of subsidy or help of 1,200 crores in the form of no sales tax for some time. Still they did not come. They made all out efforts. Now, foreign companies which are coming to India, they are all coming around a place like Delhi. Haryana, if you consider north of Delhi, if you consider, Ludhiana is a big hub of industry. It's growing. It's growing. The other competition is from Gurgaon, Faridabad, Noida, which are, because of their foreigners can live in Delhi and they can't live here. That's the other part of it. Otherwise, I think situation of setting up industry in Punjab is much more easier. We have in Hoshiarpur, we have Complete Automobile in Mohali. They are there, and I think the Ludhiana or Punjab's auto industry is able to supply all over the country. I'm supplying components in West, in NCR, in Bangalore. They take a little time to reach, but I can't supply them bigger volume. I can only supply them high weight components. But the problem here is power, and I think there is expected a solution soon. And cost of land, yes, it does make a big difference. But where the lower price is being offered, it may be one-time cost, but the cost of developing that area gets onto this organization. If you are offered a land which is not fertile, which is so many kilometers away from any nearest big city, the cost of taking every material, every person every day and bringing it back is much higher than that land price.
If power is such a big issue, you have elected a government, which was not giving you power before also. So, what are that?
This government has been elected because they started a few projects, and a government, when it comes to power, it takes 2 years to lay the foundation of the first one. They did that in the last stage. They have laid there are power projects under construction, and they will be in place by 2014. They are assuming this will be a power surplus. Yes. So then all these get into that. And by electing this government, on the infrastructure projects they take long are going to continue and continue from day one. And the new ones are going to start from day one. If the other government comes 2 years, it takes to formulate policies and then.
So we have a reason to stay positive actually and not give up hopes. Coming on to Mr. Goyal again, Again and again it's being reported in various newspapers that government, the finance minister couldn't actually put up on the reformist image, and more surprising decisions are yet in the pipeline. Can you just give us a slight idea of what could be these sort of decisions, and maybe they would not be that industry friendly?
Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to answer this question. I'm supposed to answer a question on taxation. On the taxation part, in that taxation part which I have mentioned, it has been totally positive. He has, apart from countering inflation and increasing the fiscal collections, he has had multiple objectives which he has tried to achieve. He has encouraged investment and high capital formation through exemptions and concession duty in several sectors like agriculture, fertilizers, mining, road construction, railways and power sector. To see the fine print of the budget, for example, duty on coal, which is used, thermal coal which is used in the power plant, is also used in cement plants and others, that duty and custom duty has been removed, and the cement duty also has been brought down to 1%. So there has been a positive benefit of about 9% as far as coal is concerned, which will help our industry too, with power plants to come up, cement industry and others. Similarly, in agriculture related industry, he has reduced duty and increased duty for importing sectors spread through the province budget. And the biggest message here, they have also given several input credits in service tax which were not available earlier. So to reduce the cascading effect on industry, even for the construction sector, some input credits have been given which were not available earlier. In hotel industry, they have given some input credits. Restaurant industry, catering, insurance business, a lot of incentives have been given. So they are not very dramatic announcements, the time that which will make the headlines, but they are the small things here and there which ultimately help the industry to grow. So I think overall it has been a very, very positive as far as the industry is concerned. That is my impression.
Mr. Putri, I would like to understand from you, but do you think it's time to make some take some draconian steps when it comes to imposing taxes and doing away with subsidies? Because as an end consumer, we all want best from the government, but somehow we are in a city that is again rated as one of the highest in terms of tax evasions. Some 3-4 years back, it stood even at one point that it was next to Bangalore. So what do we do when you have a sort of challenge wherein you have allies who are always threatening you, may pull out, and in this sort of situation, what is the option left with, before people like you?
I think you are bringing in politics.
Basically, it's polynomics, and in Punjab we call it polyonomics.
We are all infected with politics. No, let me answer this question because this is a sensitive topic. I know I'm just pretty agreeing with you, but I'll let me formulate a reply. We have moved from an environment where we used to be a purely regulatory department as far as enterprise, customs, service tax is concerned. We consider trade as stakeholders in economic development and equal partners in economic development, country's economic growth. We believe that there are some good assessees, good manufacturers, good importers, good exporters, large number of them, who voluntarily want to comply with the law and to pay their taxes honestly. That is our sincere belief. So we have been moving in that direction of placing trust on them and encouraging voluntary compliance. To that extent, in that direction, we have introduced more of automation. Now, 98.5% of the exim trade of India is electronically processed by customs. 98.5% trade is electronically processed, and more than 50% of the import and export consignments are not even examined or assessed by customs officer. Based on the declaration filed in the documents by the importer and exporter, they are allowed to clear. Otherwise, the number of documents that we are processing, the amount of imports and exports that we are handling, with the number of officers that we have, it would have been physically impossible. So, we have gone in that direction. Similarly, in service tax, we have encouraged voluntary compliance. Central excise also, we have encouraged voluntary compliance. In jewelry, I mentioned that nobody is going to visit the jewelry stores and nobody is going to unnecessarily go and eat people. It is left to them to come and pay taxes. But of course, there are some black sheep. As you mentioned, that probably need to take some harsh steps. There are some black sheep. So when black sheep is caught, we do intend to take harsh action when people are caught. The powers of arrest were there in Central Excise and Customs law, all is there. Supreme Court in one of the rulings recently has held that the officers should not arrest unless they take warrant from the magistrate, because these are not cognizable offences. So we have clarified by legislation in this budget itself that they are not cognizable in respect of arrest by police, because police are not experts in taxation matters. So if you give this power to police, then there is a possibility of misuse. But our officers, they are well trained, they are experts in this law, and also we have put a lot of safeguards that in case a real bad sheep is caught in trade, the arrest will be effected only with the permission of a very high level officer of the level of commissioner, of the level of IG police. Only then arrest will be carried out. So we want to give this message to trade here, to you also, to Economic Times, that whereas we want the trade industry and importers, exporters to pay their taxes voluntarily, optimum extent. In case we find some black sheep, we will take action.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. And moving on to next sector, that is paper. Mr. Anil Kumar, he represents the paper industry. Please go on.
Thank you very much. Very frankly, I wouldn't stick to paper because paper is such a small industry in the entire economics of the country. It doesn't contribute even 1% of the total GDP. One thing I like to clarify that what Mr. Goel said is very correct, that this time very intensive pre-budget consultation taken place. I have been part of pre-budget consultation for the last 10 years. It is very rarely that we find chairman himself participating in the pre-budget meetings. We were fortunate Mr. S.K. Goel came in for discussions, and then ultimately in paper industry we did get the relief of removal of custom duty on the waste paper, because this was a very long-standing demand where we wanted raw material to be exempted from custom duty. We found it to be counterproductive. Fortunately in this budget that was done. So it was a very, very welcome step. I think the total budget has to be viewed in terms of the prevailing economic situation, the political compulsions of the government, and therefore the increase of duty from 8% to 10% or from marriage rate from 5% to 6% was 10 to 12% rather. It was kind of a little pleasant, at least for paper industry. We were mentally prepared for much higher dose of duty, 5 to 6%. We thought that was a reasonable increase. And I'll agree with Mr. Goel that the inflationary pressures are not only because of the taxation, the indirect taxation. They are more of economic situation in nature. If I am in a position to increase my prices, I will increase my prices irrespective of my duty structure. If I am unable to do that, even the duties have gone up, I am unable to pass on, I don't pass on. It is more out of the demand and supply situation and the economic conditions that the price of end products are affected. So therefore, in a way, we are not that kind of feeling very, very bad about the entire increase in. So only a couple of concerns which we have is, I would say Vodafone case is an example only, but basically the principle involved there, that where an assessee after all the legal processes comes to a situation where the existing law as interpreted by the highest court of the land says that this law favors the assessee, that what assessee says, the assessee interpretation is correct, and that is what the law is. Then amending it retrospectively, saying that this was his legislative intention. I don't know how that legislative intention could be clarified 10 years down the line, in this particular case, almost 50 years down the line, that year, in 1962, this was his legislative intention. Then what is the, in fact, total purpose of the entire exercise of judicial process, where from one step to another step until the highest court has come to the conclusion that this is the right interpretation of the law, that retrospective. If the basic principle is that government is always right, then be it, then I think there is no dispute that yes, this is the way we interpret it, therefore, as a sensi, you agree with us, otherwise there is no issue onto that. Then secondly, not exactly connected with the budget, but again the taxation, because the chairman is here, that on many issues where the existing judicial pronouncements are very clear, till all the tribunals, all the high courts, even Supreme Court judgments are of assessing officer says, I know that this demand is not going to stand. In the first appeal you will get it, but well, this is how it is. I have no kind of option but to raise the demand, because that is how it is. But I must say that overall, considering the political compulsions we are in, the economic situation we are in, it was comparatively a very pragmatic budget. There are certain issues with certain levies with a particular industry. Those issues could be raised in a different fora where some things could be settled. But my major worry is that whether the projections taken by the finance minister, whether those would stand. See, we in industry do have a budgetary exercise. We also prepare our annual budgets or biannual budgets. To my mind, budgets could be molded in any way you like, because you are the person who is giving the figures out. You are planning your incomes, you are planning your expenditures. So if you want to show profit in the budget, you keep your expenditures down. If you want to show loss in your budget, you keep your incomes down. My worry is that whether the projection of 5.1% fiscal deficit, which the Finance Minister has projected, bringing it down from 5.9% to 5.1%. By any chance, as the things stand today, as the total government expenditure on subsidies stands today, government expenditure on other non-planned expenditure stands today, is there any chance of meeting this target of 5.1%? I have got my grave doubts onto that, because the subsidy figures which they have projected for the year 2012-13, if the things remain as they are today, because there is no roadmap as such that how these subsidies could be brought down to the level as projected, because principally no subsidy has been cut. There is no plan to say no, from this year onwards we will not be giving this subsidy. These subsidies are eliminated. Only the subsidy budget has been cut down drastically, that this figure is from this 1,000 crores to only 43,000 crores in the coming year. Existing figure is much higher. So how do we reach this figure of subsidy ultimately? And another worry is that has the oil price increase been taken into account? Are we sanguine about it that $125 a barrel or $108 a barrel of Brent crude, is it going to be there? And if because a couple of days somebody said that even $200 a barrel may be a reality, may not be, I'm not saying that it will go to $200, but may be a reality. So therefore, if the prices of crude which are likely to go up, maybe to $130, $140, $147 as was the price in pre-2008 times. if the crude, we get a crude shock, as they put it, whether all these calculations without any political will to pass on the increase to the, especially on the diesel way, because petrol is a soft target, but it constitutes only 7-8% of the entire subsidy budget. So petrol could keep on increasing to any level you like, but would you touch kerosene, would you touch diesel, would you touch domestic cooking gas, so to say. So these are the worrying factors as they come out of the budget. The figures, because as the most of the experts have said that for the first time, the figures do not seem to be realistic. While framing the budget, somehow or the other, they felt that even the finance minister knew that, these figures are good for budget. We'll see as the time passes what the actuals are. So I'd like to ask Mr. Badan what, maybe he may say it's not part of his domain, but what does he feel about
No, I have raised, thank you, Kumar. I have raised 2-3 questions. One is about retrospective amendment in Vodafone case. That is not my cup of tea, but general, I think. Principally, yes. You see, this Vodafone case was a case where it was a case of no taxation. A large amount of profits was made in India for a property situated in India by 2 entities outside India. So the question of who will pay the tax, where the tax is paid. It is not that tax has been paid abroad and we are also charging tax here. It is not like that. No tax has been paid abroad. Do you mean to say that government of India should not charge any tax also? But if you, let me complete. We have made a long speech, let me just briefly sum it up. So, that is the government's policy on this issue. Of course, I am not the person dealing with income tax, but since I have been involved in various discussions and I have heard people, various experts saying, so I am able to respond on that basis. That this was a case, this is not a good example to say that there should not be any retrospective legislation. This Vodafone case is not a good example to say that there should not be retrospective legislation. I can tell you that retrospective legislation has been there not only for granting taxes but also granting reliefs. There have been cases where the government has granted retrospective reliefs. There is a provision, a specific section in Section 37C, which says that in case the government feels, the board feels that there has been a kind of practice in by and large whereby tax was not collected, we will not collect the tax. We will issue an order, we will not collect the tax. We will say that this tax should not be collected because there is general practice, general understanding. So that kind of provision is there by legislation, Section 37C is there. And we have, in this budget itself, we have given several retrospective reliefs on separate credit. You see the fine print of law. So, it is not that government will give retrospective benefits only. Government may at times, basically not government, it's parliament. No, whatever budget finance bill is passed, it is passed by the parliament and the executive comes only to implement it. Now, of course, courts interpret it. Now, this interpretation has been going on in income tax for the last 50 years, 50-60 years, that in this kind of situation, tax will be charged in India. That was always the intention. This is not the only case, but some of this case has got highlighted in media because of the large volume of money involved and media interest which has been generated. But there would have been cases of similar nature transactions earlier where tax has been charged in India, but they are not coming from India. But because this case got to the court, it went to the High Court gave order in favor of the government, in favor of the situation that tax should be charged. Of course, Supreme Court has taken a different stand. But then the legislature intent has always been, in this particular case, that in this kind of situation where property is transacted in India and profits are made, tax has to be paid in India. Some tax has to be paid. It's not that you make such a huge profit and you don't pay tax here, you don't pay tax there. Otherwise, people like you and me, we have 5 lakh salary or 10 lakh salary and you pay tax, TDS is deducted. But in such a large transaction, you don't go tax.
And it amounts to a big amount, 11,000 crore.
Yeah. So please don't take it that spirit that government is always right. They will do what they want to write. They want to do. Government always wants to do what is right. Not government. Government always wants to do what is right. what the legislation thinks is right. In this case, there was a difference in interpretation between the legislature and the judiciary. And the legislature matter has gone before the legislature again. Now it is for the legislature to agree or not to agree. It is only a proposal. It is only a proposal. So it is between legislature and judiciary. So legislature is giving retrospective reliefs also. At times legislature may have to go for retrospective. And this is not something that there was no tax and now we are changing the law. You don't change the law. We are only saying that this was always the intention of the law. We are simply clarifying. This is the position as well as this retrospective is concerned.
Mr. Kumar has raised a very important point. That was that what is the roadmap before the government to bring the fiscal deficit down from 5.9% to 5.1%? And why should we believe in the government? I mean, because last time the target was 4.9%. We couldn't achieve that.
Yes. Last year has been a particularly bad year. It is not always like that. The government has not been able to achieve the target. In the previous year, government did achieve the target. In 2010-11, government achieved the target. Government bettered the target. That not only achieved it, bettered the target. So it's not always like that. Like in business, you make your balance sheet, you do your forecast that I'll make so much sale. But sometimes you may not make that much sale. Sometimes you may exceed the target. So targets are targets, which are the goals you should put before yourself. And sometimes you may exceed the goal, sometimes you may fall short of the goal. So it is not always that whatever I put in the goal, I will achieve, and I will not go beyond that. My attempt will be not only to achieve the goal, but also to go beyond that. So I will not be pessimistic on this issue. Finance Minister has very sincerely made attempt to this. He could have first figures if you want to first figure. For example, disinvestment, I'll give one example. He has taken a figure of 30,000 crores. If you have taken 50,000 crores, last year the target was 40,000 crores. This year he has reduced to 30,000 crores. So he knows that I am not able to achieve 40, but I will be able to achieve 30. You could have put 40, you could have put 50, instead of 5.1, you could have gone 4.9 also. So he has been very sincere, and on subsidies he has said that as far as the food subsidy is concerned, we will be fully supporting it, whatever expenditure is required, but other subsidies we will try to cut down, including diesel, pure fertilizer and all that. That's what he has stated. Now, of course, it's a political issue, to what extent they succeed, how they go about it, and the price of international oil, how the market behaves. He has taken the price of $115 that he has taken. Today is 125, 28, whatever it is. But he has taken an average, even we have taken an average. He has taken the price of $150. Last year it was $90 he has taken. But that estimate is right. But you never know, the price will also go down. 2 years back, the price came down to $50. At that time, projections were there, it will go to $150, $200, then it came to $50 per barrel. So we don't know. So there are a lot of imponderables, but Finance Minister is on track, he is going in the right direction. Depending on the overall economic situation, international economic situation, we should be able to do that.
Perfect. And we'll move on to the next sector, that's textile, like automobile. It also remains one of the backbone of Punjab.
Can I add something?
Please, we are already running out of time. Please.
One particular area which he mentioned was litigation, the increasing litigation. I just want to bring to the notice of everyone that as a result of a Judicial Reforms Commission, a national litigation policy has evolved for all departments in government of India. And specific measures are being taken in pursuance of that. For example, appeals above a certain limit, whether it's to tribunal, High Court, Supreme Court, we are just not filing for them. The second thing is, our experience is most of the show cause notices issued for demands issued arise out of audit objections. Now, what is happening is these audit objections are approved by the Commissioner himself. A Commissioner is a very senior officer of the level of Joint Secretary in Government of India, and he has monthly meetings with his staff, and only after he approves are these show cause notices issued. So, the effort is on to reduce litigation, but it's a big challenge also. And our statistics show that the number of appeals, etc., is going down. But for this policy to take effect, it will take some time also. And the other thing I would like to add to what Chairman has said about retrospective amendments, he said it very elaborately. But I just want to make a remark where it affects, in fact, all of us. We don't have it in mind, and neither the press highlights. But the Vodafone is being highlighted because of the sheer amount. One area where it affects all of us is, you might be aware of service tax on renting of commercial property. And that definition was changed retrospectively only to bring out the meaning clear. The courts have upheld it. But what I'm trying to say is that was retrospective, and everybody may be, affected by that, but that is not being seen by anyone. But only Vodafone is being seen.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Putri. I can see Mr. V.K. Goel from SCL Group eagerly awaiting to make expert comments. Sir, please, all yours.
Thank you. Well, we all know that textile is one of the very important industries in the country and contributes significantly to GDP of the nation. It practically contributes over 6% and is one of the largest employment providers in the country. The textile in this country has seen a lot of growth over the years. But what we feel is that the industry has been going through a very difficult phase. And the government possibly has overlooked that part. And its significance to the national growth. We all know that it cannot be seen in today's context only at the national level as to what this industry is doing and what needs to be brought in to tax this industry. It has to be seen in the context of the competitors at the global level. And the policies which have been followed, especially this increase in duty of 2%, I think is going to have a huge negative impact on this textile industry. They are already negatively placed against countries like China or Pakistan in certain products. 2% per se may seem to be a very small percentage. But look at in the context of as to what is the financial health of the textile industry in today's situation. The industry has huge investments, the industry has large workforce, and if this capacity which has been created in the country is not utilized properly, it is only going to have a negative impact on the health of the industry in general in this country. Whereas it has the potential to contribute much more significantly to the national growth. Today this industry may be about $70 to $75 billion. It has the potential to become about over $200 billion industry in the next about 7 to 8 years. And if it is not given that kind of due importance, we run the risk of not realizing that potential. India is endowed with lots of cotton of its own, a large workforce in this country which is skilled and intelligent enough to perform at the level which the people in the other countries have performed. But there needs to be, a reason for the government to look at this industry more seriously. The Honorable Chairman, just let me complete. The Honorable Chairman talked about that the duty on the garments has been reduced to about 3.6% from little over 4% by increasing the abatement from 55% to 70%. And utilizing therefore partly the impact of even increase in the normal rate of duty from 10% to 12%. It doesn't have to be really seen in that context. It has to be seen as to whether the size of India in terms of its population and the economy size and the textile industry size. Do we think that the size of the garment industry in this country is good enough that we should be looking at? Can we really look at as to how many large-scale garment units we have in this country? Do we understand that whether this 3.6% effective rate of duty on this industry is going to curb the demand? Therefore, there is a need for us to raise consumption of these products in this country by raising it to a level where it can compete and it can have the lower incidence of duty so that the domestic consumption grows and also the export potential that we have grows continuously. Today, if you go around to Thane, Delhi, Bangalore or any other places, a large number of garment units which are operating at suboptimum capacities. Many of them in small scale sector. In fact, many of them have almost closed down because of the policy which are not giving any encouragement to the garment sector, which otherwise is very important. If you look at even the total export of India for textiles, garments occupy a very major share. It needs to be encouraged and the potential in this country is far more. Today, this country in terms of textile exports is not even 1/6 of what China does. Whereas China is unfavorably placed in terms of availability of the raw material, China is dependent on imports of cotton and we continue to export cotton to China, one of our competitors, at the cost of the domestic industry. While these are some of the negatives, but then I look at one aspect which is very positive, that the government has chosen to extend the applicability of the textile upgradation, technological upgradation fund for next 5 years. It will continue till about 2017 now, I think that's very positive. This will allow the industry to modernize further. It will allow the industry to plan on long-term basis. If you are given a situation of uncertainty that this will stay only for 1 or 2 years, possibly doesn't encourage the entrepreneur to invest money. So I'm sure that that particular aspect is going to help the country in a much more great detail. So I'll leave it at this for the time being, but then later on, once Mr. Goyal responds to this, I'd like to raise some issues which are technical in nature and they belong only to the textile industry.
Textile industry, as I mentioned, a number of tax concessions have been given. I just reiterate for your information. First is the full exemption from custom duty has been given to shuttle-less looms, which are required for modernization of the textile industry. Full exemption has been given to automatic silk reeling and processing machinery and parts to custom duty. Then custom duty has been reduced from